Okay guys, welcome back to another Unbiased Magic review, and today I'm going to be reviewing for you guys Paul Vigil's Penguin live act. Yeah, so this was a live act that was filmed about 2 months ago, August-ish 2019, and here Paul Vigil, if you're not familiar with him, he's more like a cabaret type performer out of Las Vegas. He has some very polished magic. And so in this Penguin live act, he presents 6 pieces of magic and then goes over them in detail with Dan Harlan. The act itself lasts about 30 minutes. It's actually exactly 30 minutes, which is interesting because it goes to show you that Paul Vigil has rehearsed this very well. And every single thing he says and does in the live act has been very carefully thought out. He is a man that brings a lot of attention to detail. You could just see the professionalism in his performance. And then the explanations, they are about an hour and a half with Dan Harlan, and they dissect each of these 6 pieces of magic. So a couple of things I want to tell you guys. The price of this is $40. I'll tell you that I think this is worth probably twice that. And I'm going to go over the details of why that is. Is this magic that you're going to use? Yeah, it is. Out of those 6 pieces of magic, I personally would probably even consider performing maybe about 5 of them, which is very rare because most of the time I watch one of these Penguin lectures, maybe I'll see 1 or 2 pieces of magic that I might think about performing. Now, the interesting thing here is that Paul Vigil, he's put out some publications over the last couple of years that were very hard for people to get a hold of because they're expensive. His last couple of books, Classic Fantastic, Doors of Deception, they're expensive books, so they're not things that people are buying regularly. So if you did not pick up those, there's a couple of pieces of magic from this live act come directly from those books, and definitely I would not hesitate to pick this up for that reason as well. So I'm going to give you my thoughts, plus and minus, over each of these performances, these pieces, and give you my thoughts on it, and then just sum up what I think. So in usual Penguin live act fashion, he performed for a group of people at a table. He opened up with his free will of order effect. Free will of order effect. This effect, his opening effect on this Penguin live act, actually came directly from his book Doors of Deception, and it's like a typical free will principle effect, which there's a lot of them out there. And so now the market's pretty much saturated with these effects. I mean, I recently saw somebody else put one out that used poker chips. So there's a lot of these free will principle effects. Paul Vigil's effect is very well thought out. It's has a very impromptu nature to it. And if you don't perform a free will effect, then I would recommend you take a look at it. It's definitely something that probably a lot of people would use just because it's very easy handling, beginner-oriented handling, very easy to perform, and has very large impact. I mean, so myself personally, I like a different free will effect. I myself prefer Volition by Joel Dickerson, and only because it uses business cards, and I like that because that's a lot easier for me to carry on me. But nevertheless, the effect is perfectly workable for anybody. So definitely, it's I don't see any real negatives with the first effect. And in terms of difficulty, I would tell you it's really beginner level. So anyone can perform it. Mental type of effect. The second effect on there is a reworking of the classic Skinner 3-card Monty. So if you're like me and you probably have a bunch of gimmicks sitting in your junk drawer, you probably have the Skinner 3-card Monty set, and you probably learned the original handling, which was more just on the table handling. And so here, Paul Vigil has reworked the effect. He has revamped the handling, so it's more in the hands type of handling. And I think it's very clever. And if you don't do a 3-card Monty effect, then this is something you might want to check out. In terms of difficulty, it's, again, beginner level, because the gimmicks do all the hard work for you. I mean, myself personally, I probably wouldn't use it only because I perform Garrett Thomas's stand-up Monty. I prefer that to it. I think it just has more impact, and it's totally in the hands, so I like that better. But nevertheless, this may be something that you might enjoy. I thought it was very clever and definitely does get you to take out those old gimmicks out of your drawer. The third effect was called Thou Shalt Not Steal, which was a 5-to-1 transpo effect. And there's a lot of 5-to-1 transpo effects out there, although I don't think a lot of people perform it overall, probably just because they're scared they're going to get caught out with the gimmick. Again, this is Paul Vigil's handling of the 5-to-1 transpo. And it definitely is the type of magic that you get a lot of reactions from because the transposition takes place in the spectator's hands. And Paul Vigil goes over all of the small details related to it. The actual gimmick is easy and quick to make. And definitely, if you're interested in doing the 5-to-1 transpo, this is a nice option for you. Something I personally would definitely consider performing is this effect. I don't see really any negative aspect to it. I think it's a good option for those of us who want or interested in it. The next effect on there, which is pretty much the only card effect other than the 3-card Monty effect, is it's called Mind Melding Magician, and in it, it's a type of brainwave / Chicago opener effect where you present a deck of cards. The spectators come up with a card, and it's the only odd back card in the deck. And then as a kicker, that card changes to another selection that they make. So it's definitely a good little piece of magic, and definitely something that you could consider in terms of difficulty. If you can do a double turnover, then you can do the effect. Really, that's really the only real move in there. It's really very basic card handling. So I would say it's like very beginner oriented. The next effect, which to me was probably the most difficult in terms of handling it, is called the Phantom Returns, which for me personally, that was my favorite effect on this Penguin Live Act. And what that was penetration effect using a safety pin. And so I'm going to actually show you guys my own performance of it to show you that this is something that you could learn very quickly. So here is my performance of that same effect. Okay, so you saw my own quick handling of the effect, and you could see that it's perfectly workable, and I fell in love with this, especially just because it's a lovely close-up piece of magic. I'm carrying this with me everywhere I go now and showing it to people, and it just destroys minds. It just blows people away, and it's very, very easy to perform, as you could see. I mean, personally, I think it is. It might be the most difficult in terms of sleight of handish on the live act. I would say it's probably intermediate level difficulty. You have to practice it a little bit to get it down, but it's definitely within the reach of anybody. And so it's definitely a nice handling of the classic phantom pin routine. And so I think it's definitely something, for me, it's worth the price of the whole live act. So I can't recommend it enough. And then the final piece on there is called Our Kind of Girdle. And what that is back to another gambling-like theme. And what it is it's the endless chain, the fast and loose. And if you did read Paul Vigil's classic Fantastic, then that's where this routine comes from. If you could not get your hands on the classic Fantastic, then at least now you have the chance to learn it here. And the big change is that the classic fast and loose, the chain is thrown on a table. And if you're interested in this type of gambling effect, fast and loose, I would recommend you check out Chef Anton's Fast and Loose, which I think is marketed under School for Scoundrels, Fast and Loose. Chef Anton, his performance of this is incredible. But then again, about Paul Vigil, I thought that his version of this is very nice because what he did was he took the fast and loose off of the table, and what he's done is he's put it in your hands. So the chain is no longer thrown on the table. Instead, it's done up here, and then it's just placed down. So if you have a limited space to perform in, the nice thing is you could perform Paul Vigil's version, which is here in the hands, you do it up here, and then you just lay it down, which is great because it's a very nice alternative to, you know, when the classic fast and loose where you have to throw it on the table. Again, I would tell you guys this one piece of magic is worth the whole live act. So most of these penguin lectures, sometimes I find one or two things I like. You know, it's very rare that you find a lecture that almost every piece of magic is worth learning and performing. And I can tell you guys that from my own experiences and whatnot, that this live act is worth it's worth every penny because every single piece here is usable. And Paul Vigil leaves out no attention to detail here on this live act. So in terms of the other things I'll tell you is this is what I really liked was I liked the diversity of the effects because no two effects look alike. They're all totally different. So he really has brought here a well thought out act for the community. And I think that he did a really great job with this. And I'm not surprised at all because Paul Vigil, he really seems to take his time and study these routines before he puts stuff out there. So I think it's definitely, this gets my highest recommendation. This Penguin live act up until today, for me, this Penguin live act is the best one that I've seen this year by far. I mean, this definitely gets like 5 stars for me. And like I had said earlier, probably the only routine on here I wouldn't consider to perform myself would probably just be that 3-card Monty. I mean, the other things even his Free Will of Order, I might even consider to perform that sometime. And so I think that all the other material on here is stuff that you will probably end up using. So like I said, it's 30 minutes, and then in about an hour and a half, Dan Harlan goes over each of the pieces in detail with Paul Vigil. I hope that you guys found this useful. Don't hesitate, just get it. You'll thank me later. There's really no negative to this at all. And in terms of difficulty, it's all very workable. It's actually really almost beginner level, most of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff does rely on pretty much little gimmicks here and there and stuff. So it's really not difficult magic at all. You'll enjoy it a lot. So anyway, I hope that you guys are enjoying my reviews. Please subscribe so you can continue to watch my reviews. That way you can, if you don't like my reviews, subscribe too, so that way you can continue to send me negative feedback. I welcome any comments, positive or negatives. And I hope that this helps you make your decisions on what you should get. You know, my goal here is to try to put out honest feedback for you guys because I've seen just too many YouTube videos where people are getting supplied this crap by magic companies and they're just pushing it on you. And you know, the reality is that some of this stuff is definitely worth buying. Don't even hesitate. Other stuff, I'm going to tell you it's garbage. Don't buy it and don't waste your money on it. And so if I can help you, well, then that's great. Then that's what I'm doing this for. So that's all for now. I hope you guys are enjoying this.